Welcome to the Book Fest 2023. I am your host for this panel, Scott Ryan, which we just recently, right before we went live, found out that everyone on this panel knows me and thinks I'm one of the most famous authors that ever lived. But in case you have not heard of me out there watching, my name is Scott Ryan. I'm the author of The Last Days of Letterman, Moonlighting an Oral History, David Lynch's Lost Highway. I love to cover movies and television. That's what most of my books have been about. And so when I was given the opportunity to talk about how we get a book to the screen, I was so excited because I have gotten all my books from the screen. So we're flipping the script here, and we have some wonderful guests, and they're going to introduce themselves and tell you all about their books. We're going to start with you, Edo. Introduce yourself and let us know what your books are and what has been turned into a television show or a movie.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me. My name is Edo van Belkom. I've done like 35 books, hundreds of short stories, but one of the novels recently has been turned into a television series. There it is, Wolfpack. January 26th, 2023, it was premiered on Paramount Plus. There's 8 episodes this year, and starring Sarah Michelle Gellar, which I couldn't believe when that happened. And by all accounts, it's doing very well. Still waiting for season 2 to be announced, but I'm happy with the way it's going, and a lot of other people are as well.
That is so exciting, and I would love to ask you how many times Sarah talks about me, because I was a Buffy fan, and I'm sure she also knew I watched it. But you know what? We don't have time for that. We're going to move on to Melinda.
Just on that, I've never heard her say my name, so I don't know if she's ever going to mention you. She's never mentioned my name.
We don't need to get into that. We know she's thinking about me. Melinda, tell us about you and your book.
All right. I'm Melinda Curtis. I write romantic comedies, sweet romance, and women's fiction. I've written over 80 titles. I'm independent and traditionally published. So I've published with Forever Romance and Harlequin, and then on my own publishing house, which is not as glamorous as it sounds. I had a TV movie made out of the book Dandelion Wishes, which starred Amber Marshall of Heartland fame. If anyone out there watches that long-running series, they've got something like 15 or 17 seasons of it. Yeah, and that's in a nutshell, I guess. It came out in 2020.
And was that one of your self-published, or did that go through a quote-unquote real publisher? I hate to use that term because we're all real publishers, but which one did it come?
Traditional. We'll say traditional
there we go.
Publisher. Yes, they went to production company went to Harlequin and said, we want a romance around a winery. And I used to work at a winery, so I was writing winery books at the time. And it was something that the French market had requested. So that's why they came, trying to sell it to as many markets as they could.
I love it. Nzondi, tell us about you and your books.
So I'm the new kid on the block, not as seasoned as you vets. I'm a Bram Stoker. My first novel that came out in 2019 won the Bram Stoker Award. And my second novel came out a couple of years ago. And both of my novels are now being shopped by an executive producer who already has a putting together a pretty good team. We have some actors attached. We have some producers attached, a couple of production companies attached, a couple of really great writers as well. And he's also wants me to write he asked me to put out give him a treatment of a story about my father. My father was part of a group called AJAZ that started the Black is Beautiful movement. So thank you. He actually has a lot of interest in all 3 projects. So we're at that stage now. We're in developing. So
Wow,
it's
that
pretty
is so
exciting.
exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really cool to have all those projects going at once.
Yeah.
I
Thank you. Yeah.
mean, that's incredible. And then we have Rich. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hey, I'm Rich Davis. I am the writer and creator of Cult of Dracula and Rise of Dracula from Source Point Press. And I have a new book coming out in June from Red 5 Comics called Prometheus in Chains, which is a play on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein set in the post-World War II atomic age. The relevant book why I'm here with you guys is Cult of Dracula. It has now been moved from the optioned phase into the active development phase with BR Films. And they plan to start lensing in spring of 2024 with a target release date of October of 2024. We've been working with Stone Theaters on a limited theatrical release, and then from there we expect it to go to one of the streamers. Shudder has been one that's frequently mentioned. Peacock and Paramount Plus, actually, we've had conversations with them. So from here, it's kind of out of my hands. You know, it's in the capable hands of the folks at BR Films. You know, I wrote it, and now I get to be like you guys and sit back and watch it.
So I can tell that everyone who's at home watching this, they have their books and they think and they know they have the next Harry Potter, they have the next, Star Wars, and they just don't know what to do. So I want to go around and I want each of you to tell me, because that's what everybody wants. They want that one piece of advice. What's the first thing that each of you thinks that person that has this book should do? Let's start with you, Ada.
I'm probably not a good person to answer this because I wrote my book in 2004. There was interest at the time that fizzled out and never happened. And then 16, 18 years later, I get an email from my agent saying someone's interested in your book. So I just was sitting at the kitchen table when it happened. And the funny thing was the interest when it was published, there was somebody from Paramount who had a development deal, and that never went anywhere. But later on, I realized that that person probably gave Jeff Davis the book and asked him if he wanted to do that. And to my surprise, I'm just saying these guys are out of their minds. The books have been out of print for 12 years. I can't even get them in print, and they're wanting to make a series on them. These guys are crazy. But okay, we'll take your option money and see what happens. Little did I know that they already had a plan, because it went from Lightspeed to the option to actual production less than a year. They had the writer's room going in 6 months, and then 6 months later they were filming, and then another 7 months or 8 months it was on TV. So it was like Lightspeed. So I did nothing but write a good book to start with, and that was about it. So write a good book, and somebody will pay attention to it eventually.
But I mean, that kind of is really good advice, and that leaves hope for people who are waiting. You've heard it here. Just sit at your kitchen table. That is advice number one. Melinda, I mean, what should someone do? And I feel like there's so many people that want romance novels, and people want to watch
series.
them.
Yeah, like the phenomenon of Virgin River on Netflix and Bridgerton. People are looking for those kind of properties. I actually have two different TV movie producers that I pitch to every fall. So I would say my advice to you is to study, who does the kind of movies that fit your book, your property. And then I would find out who's producing those, which studios, they're small studios really that are doing a lot of this work. And then they sell them to somebody like a bigger streamer. So the process is, do you want me to jump into the process? But
sure, why not?
The process is you need to say, okay, these people like this kind of stuff. This is popular in culture or in the genre, and how can I come up with a very short pitch sentence that summarizes what this is? So for example, I did something like You've Got Mail meets small town coffee shop, right? So there are Christmas cards being exchanged anonymously on a bulletin board, and I thought, okay, this idea I don't remember exactly what the pitch line was. That's a horrible pitch line, but I pitched it 6 months ago. And I thought, oh, wow, this is a really unique idea. And then the movie producer asked me more about it. And I said, well, it's a, New York dancer injured, comes home to this small town. And I thought, oh, this is going to be really unique. And they said to me, wow, 4 years ago, we did a movie with a dancer as a heroine. and you're like, oh, okay. So you have to also research what they've done recently,
right.
What other people are buying, because you want, you kind of want to construct, if you're writing something, if you're in that stage, something that's going to be unique that nobody's quite doing. Because when they go to pitch, and this movie producer pitches to all the streamers and the networks, and she doesn't want them to come across as just doing something that they've done before.
Right.
They're looking for that really quick sentence that says, oh, this could be really unique, and then have it not be something that they've done before.
That's really good advice. What do you got for us, Nzondi?
Oh,
we can't quite hear you. I mean, his advice is really secret, and only people. If you didn't hear what he
buy
said,
the book.
Yeah,
I heard it. It's the best advice ever, and everyone should follow that. No one will ever top that.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, my goodness. So, and you must be muted or something, Nzondi. You're not coming through. So maybe work on your mic or something, and Rich is going to give us his advice. And Nzondi, you might want to bump in and out or something. I don't know, but we can't hear you. Go ahead, Rich.
So question being, what should someone do to get their
they want
book?
some advice from you. How they want to be you.
So yeah, if you want to, I don't think anybody wants to be me, but if you want to get your book turned into a television property or a movie, what do you have to do? Whatever it takes. That's the best advice I can give you, period. I've never been a person who is content to sit back and wait for someone to open a door for me. I prefer to kick it down myself. So what I did, I was very aggressive in marketing Cult of Dracula. I had it optioned for film development before the first issue hit the shelves. And that's simply because I was dogged in my pursuit of a production company that would be interested in this type of property. Exactly what Melinda was saying. Find someone who does the type of work that you do, and then just bug the hell out of them, and politely, of course. You have to go into it if you're doing it from my position, which is coming from being absolutely nobody with a property that no one had ever heard of. You have got to be your own version of P.T. Barnum. You have got to sell the hell out of your work, because if you don't believe in it and you don't think it's the most exciting thing that's ever been written, whomever you're pitching it to is not going to believe that either. So it takes a lot of chutzpah. It takes a lot of thick skin for people to look you in the eyeballs and tell you, yeah, no, this sucks, or this isn't something we're interested in. But you just have to keep at it. Persistence and your own work ethic will shine through. That's just the secret of achieving anything in life, is work at it and don't give up.
And I don't think that you need an agent. I get asked that question quite a bit. I deal directly with the two producers that I pitch to. And
agents get in the way a lot.
Yeah. And I do realize that if they're supposed to hold on to your work for a certain set of time and you don't pitch it to somebody else, that they should pay you. However, because these people allow me to pitch to them, I don't say, oh yeah, I'm going to need a little bit of money for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Nzondi, how's your mic? No, we can't hear you.
Oh.
And this guy's just dropping wisdom, man.
Yeah, and he actually gave, I could read his lips, he gave the phone number where somebody at home could call and they will automatically produce your film.
Yes.
I think he should flip up cards.
Yeah. You might want to go back to the other way because we could hear you before.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they're not going to be happy with me, but I would go back to the phone because we could hear you. I don't know,
Yeah.
but the mic
Whatever
is
it takes.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
We want to hear from you. So I had a book that I thought would make a good movie. I still do. And I paid someone to pitch this for me. They took my money and I've never heard from them again.
Mm-hmm.
Did any of you put any money of your own money up to get something pitched to someone? And is that a good idea?
Are you talking about advertising money, or are you talking?
No, that they wanted me to pay them to pitch to Netflix and places.
No,
Did they have a track record, or did they used to work at Netflix, or?
They said they had a track record, but actually after the money was exchanged, I never heard from them again. But this isn't about me. I just wanted go ahead, Edo.
Here, and speaking of publishing terms, I talk to aspiring writers all the time. A general rule of thumb in publishing is that money flows from the publisher to the author, never the other way around. So paying somebody to pitch your thing is going against that advice. And in your case, it didn't work out. So on that little test, small sample size, that's a good advice for any aspiring writer.
I agree with that. There are so many people out there that are promising. They're going to promise you to get rich quick. Give me $500 and I guarantee you someone at Netflix is going to see this. And there's no quick, easy secret to doing this. It takes a lot of work and a lot of luck. And if you're going to spend money advertising yourself and your book. Make yourself someone important. Make yourself the next great writer. You can invent yourself as anything you want. As long as you can get the word out there and then back it up with the product. So don't waste your money paying somebody else to pitch for you. Pitch yourself.
Right. How are you doing, Nzondi? I think we still don't, we're just not hearing you, but I like this as a comeback. I mean, I like that this is where we loop together and we all bond from there. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I would totally drop out and go back in through your phone because it was working before we started. That's my advice. But what do I know? I paid somebody to pitch a book to Netflix for me. I don't know that I'm the right one to believe this. So I think another thing that would be tricky for an author is to let go and let the TV show become what it is. We'll go backwards and start with Rich. Did you have to let something go when they were making that movie and you're like, hey, this movie's different from the book? I mean, what advice can you give for that?
Yeah, you're absolutely going to have to make compromises. And that's something that gets heavily criticized when adapting a comic book like Cult of Dracula to a film medium. Comic book fans, for some reason, expect everything to be exactly like they read it on the page.
Right.
And that's just not going to happen because while writing a comic book is more similar to writing a screenplay than it is to writing a novel, they're still very different mediums, and you're going to have to do different things with the books, and you're going to have to, make changes. So, my personal advice, and I might be a little bit different because I don't hold on with sentimentality to things. Once I've sold it, it's theirs. They can do what they want with it as long as they stay within my creative, bubble. And, I do maintain creative approval. over the Cult of Dracula film adaptation, but I don't intend to be actively involved with that because I think it would just drive me crazy and cause a lot of problems. Because the BR films, they've got to do what they've got to do to make this movie, and I don't want to be standing in the way of it because of my ego or my silly attachment to a character that nobody else but me cares about.
What do you think, Melinda? Have you had to let something go that hurt when that you were like, oh?
Look, if you are contracted with a traditional publisher, you often have to let things go that hurt. You do. And I happened to the days that I was on set. So the first day we went and we looked at some edited versions of the dailies. Oh, you want to check in with Nzondi?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, he speaks.
There it is.
Oh my God.
Woohoo!
So sorry about that. That was
It's
terrible.
a good way to like make you like the centerpiece, though.
Because everybody's
Everyone
been
is
like, where's Nzondi? What's he going to
Oh
do?
my God.
We wanna
waiting.
know. So I'm gonna interrupt you, Melinda, and we're gonna let Nzondi tell us. I think you did get to introduce yourself, but we didn't get to hear your advice. And according to Rich, it's the best advice we have.
Right?
So.
Yeah.
My,
Worth waiting
my
for.
advice is a little different. It's a little complex and it's in layers. I work in the entertainment industry as a stand-in. If anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's more or less like a stunt man, except I don't do the stunts. We're like a rehearsal actor. And so on the show, How to Get Away with Murder, I worked there for 6 years. I got to know a lot of executive producers, directors, actors, and even the creator. The creator did the blurb on the front of my book, Oware Mosaic, the one that won the Bram Stoker. So in that process, my whole process was getting to know people, developing a relationship. When I go to a lot of conferences, I noticed that, instead of getting to know each other, a lot of people are going on and on and on and on and on about their stories in their books. And sometimes with the executive producers and whatnot, there's a glaze in their eyes when you're talking on and on. So what I did was just build relationships. How are your children? Blah, 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 blah. Just really from the roots up, built relationships with them. So after a year or two, they got to know my work ethic, my character, my personality. And then when I won the Bram Stoker, I gave every actor and every writer and every producer, a copy of my book. And that's kind of how it worked for me. After that, they came to me and said, "Hey, do you want to turn this? Ever thought about turning this into a TV series?" And I said, "No." And so that's kind of how my process started.
You didn't really think no,
brilliant
right? I mean,
and when I worked last year on the show Bel Air, I had just published my second book at that time, Lipstick Asylum. And, I didn't tell them about my book at the beginning of the season. I just got to know the writers. I just said I'm a writer. I think I might have told them I was a Bram Stoker Award winner. Maybe. I can't remember. Not everyone. And then I told a few of the producers. And at the end of the season, I gave them a book. And 3 of them came up to me and said, "Oh, my God, one of my production companies is doing, working in YA books. I'd love to, I want to read your book. Do you have a script for it?" And that's kind of how we came, that's how I got involved in that process. And the publisher of those 2 books, Kate, I didn't know, she just surprised me with part of a pilot script for Oware Mosaic, and it blew my mind. And she said, "Okay, now you help write the rest." I don't recommend anyone writing a screenplay if they don't have professional background. I went to school for screenwriting, never wrote a script. I graduated in 1990, never wrote a script, but I did have that background in it. And together we wrote and polished the script. And then I sent it to someone who worked in the writer's room for Bel Air. And they looked it over and gave me some checks and balances. We cleaned it up. And then I presented it to a few executive producers. So that's kind of how I got started.
That's such an interesting way. And I mean, obviously having Shonda Rhimes as a contact, why didn't I think of that? Edo, you mentioned that they did a writer's room on there. Did you learn, were you in that room, or that all happened without you?
Yeah, your previous topic was how much do you let go? And after the book was optioned, 0 input, none at all. they paid me for the option, and then first day of filming, you get that very large check because they have to pay. And when we were negotiating, I said, "Oh, if it goes to the second season, maybe I'll be allowed to write an episode or something." There was no response to that. And now that the series is running, people want to read my book, but the book was written for young adults, age 11 to 15, and the series is for grown-ups. If you watched it, there's language, there's sex, there's all kinds of over-the-top violence. People reading my books are going to be disappointed seeing the series. People seeing the series are going to be disappointed getting to the books because they're totally different. They were inspiration for the series, and I'm okay with that. It just, when it started, I thought I'd been struck by lightning and won the lottery all in the same day. And then people told me, like, no, you're not being fair to yourself, because that suggests that the book was pulled out of a hat, and it wasn't. Wrote a good book, and someone's interest lasted that long, and then it came to fruition. And I'm enjoying the series and what Jeff Davis has done with it. I have no problem with it. He's a genius as far as I'm concerned, in how he's writing the stories and episodes. There's core elements that connect to the book. Let's not say there's nothing similar. There's core elements, the core situation, the love of nature, the pack, finding your identity, the family situation. That's all there, but it's a totally different thing. So I'm happy with that. I let go, and let's see how far this goes, because I'm enjoying the ride. Social media, I'm having a blast. All this, never had as much fun as a writer as watching all of this. And every week I get to watch based on a novel by Edo van Belkom. How cool is that?
That's incredible.
I've been on the set. I've walked the red carpet in Los Angeles. I don't want to dominate this, but I just want to say this one thing. How many authors get to say to their wife, "How would you like to come to Los Angeles with me and walk the red carpet?" And that happens. So whatever they want to do with it, I'm enjoying it. And just let's see season 2, season 3, and how long we can go for it.
So I have some advice on top of that for Edo, if he,
let's hear it.
So a lot of my mentors early on told me about that process. Like most authors, and it makes sense. Most books that go to screen, is totally, the author has nothing to do with the screenplay 99% of the time. Makes sense. And from hearing that, one of them gave me some advice, and then I saw something that happened a couple of years ago to a creator who brought a TV show in, and here's the piece. So the creator brought this TV show in. It was picked up, it was shot, it was done, it was very well done. But since he was the creator, he didn't have, and he was from out of town, out of state. He wasn't from Hollywood, so he didn't have anyone around him, any team. He was by himself. And since he was the creator, he made a lot of decisions that he thought was right, but it wasn't part of the, executive producers, liking, and they moved him out completely. He was the creator, and they moved him out completely. So, what some
once
of my
you
mentors
sell it, it's not yours anymore.
Yeah.
Some of my mentors told me, they said, what you need to do is start building yourself again, relationships, a rapport with some of the producers and executive producers and some of the team. And once you do that, you start building a say-so. And so that's kind of like what I did. Once I knew that, I did that in my situation. And the executive producer on my project, he called it, when we're introduced to any of the different people that we're dealing with the team, I'm his partner. So I'm coming in as the partner. And I heard that if you write the pilot script, it really gives you a lot of say-so for the series, or if you have something to do with the pilot script. So my advice, and I just started watching it, and it's great. I watched the first episode, and I love it. And I'm a big Buffy fan. My advice is start buddying up and getting to know some of the writers, or not even the writers, the head writer and some of the executive producers. Start buddying them up. When you go to LA, buy them.
Right.
You take them
and
to dinner.
I mean, definitely. Definitely
Oh.
buddy up with Sarah Michelle Gellar, and I'll come with you. I'll
I
go.
spent 5 minutes talking with Sarah Michelle Gellar, and every time I see Jeff Davis, I've got 5 minutes of his time because he's always zooming somewhere else. And I would love to do that. And
take him to dinner. You got to take him to lunch. Take him to dinner. You got to do it.
if I could get them in one place for as long as it takes for a dinner,
Right.
that would be great. But it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
But it
I
will.
appreciate your
It
advice,
will.
but wait till episode 5. That's going to blow you away.
Looking forward to it.
We've got a tip. So I find that every success I've ever had, I can always trace back to kindness. So whenever I interview people, I like to ask a question about how kindness helped your career. So Melinda, tell us a time when somebody gave you an act of kindness that really helped you along.
Well, in the before the Kindle, was introduced, because I've been writing for a while, and I was only traditionally published. Traditional publishing houses are kind of like corporate America, which is you have no control, right, about who gets hired or fired or whatever. And so I went through a period of time where I had 5 different editors over 5 different books. Usually you're just assigned one editor. So I was basically orphaned because no one really, liked me or whatever. And the last editor, it was like her first year at Harlequin. And they had a restructuring, and they were restructuring books and everything. And they said, you know what, Melinda, we no longer have an interest in publishing your work. And I was very gracious about saying, okay, I totally get it. I completely get it. Like the person who first bought me was long gone. And like not 2.5 years later, the same person that I graciously said that to came back to me and said, you know what, we'd like you to come back. we want you to come back. So I feel like if you handle yourself, with humility and graciousness, that things will come back around to you. Just keep, working at your craft.
I like it. Rich, do you have a story where someone gave you an act of kindness and it made a difference in your career?
Absolutely. I've been very fortunate to have such a positive experience I have in the comic book industry. I found that most of the people working in our industry want other people to succeed. And I was very surprised by the fact that when I was nobody, I had no books, I was nothing except a guy out there playing P.T. Barnum. But artists that I have admired for a decade or more were willing to sit down and talk to me for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, at a convention or wherever we happened to be. And they were very free with their advice and their support. And that's something I've taken to heart, and I like to pay that forward. So when people reach out to me, and you get if you've written anything that has any level of success, you're going to have somebody reach out to you wanting to know how you did it. And so whenever somebody reaches out to me like that, I always answer, and I'm always willing to listen to them. And try to give them advice, and I think the more we pay that forward, the more that's going to come back to us, and it's going to make the industry better. So yeah, I mean, kindness is a huge launching point for achieving anything in this industry, I think.
Yeah, and definitely in Nzondi, that's what you were sort of talking about, being on the set. But do you have a specific, you mentioned mentors. Did you have a specific person that really helped you?
Yeah. So yeah, the first 3 mentors that I had, so I was a teacher. I taught in New York for 13 years, and I came over to LA, and I was the director of education for the Civil Learning Center. And I wanted to learn how to write. I quit all of that. And I started learning how to write. I took classes, workshops, and I decided I wanted to go to a fair. I wanted to see, what it was like for a book conference or a book fair. And my first fair I went to was the West Hollywood Book Fair. And the first 2 people that I met was Alexandra Sokoloff and the writer Heather Graham. And it was like instant buddies or mentors. They took me in. They were selling their books. We started talking. I think at the time Heather Graham was part of the Horror Writers Association. She told me to join that. And from that point on, I was emailing both of them back and forth, getting advice. I took Alexandra Sokolov's workshop, and I just was just powering on. And one day when I was on the set of Flash Forward, I was working on my first novel of all that stuff that I had learned, and this guy comes up to me and he says, "I noticed every time you're, offset, you're writing. Are you an author?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm writing my first book." And he said, "Oh, I see that, and you look very studious. My name is Robert J. Sawyer." I'm like, "Whoa!" And he says, "Yeah, this series is based on my book, and I'm actually writing this episode. I think it was episode 19." And he introduced me to his wife, and from that moment, and he gave me his card, and he left. And I looked at his card, and it had his books on it, and one of his books was Hominids. And I'm like, hominids? I looked on my laptop over some different things that I was studying, and I happened to be studying that book. And I was studying the synopses on that. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm studying this. And the guy just comes up to me and meets me. And so a few times later, we talked, and he became one of my biggest and best mentors and now friends. And it was his act of kindness, just coming up to some random guy that's writing and just, introducing himself to me is what really, and Heather Graham was what really launched my career.
What about you, Ada?
That's great that you mentioned Rob Sawyer. He happens to be my best friend, and I'm going to finish this little section with a reference to Rob. Two things I'm going to talk about being favors done to me. When I published my collection, Death Drives a Semi, I was looking for some place to publish it, to advertise it. And I picked up a magazine called Truck News. Happened to be edited by a newspaper reporter I worked with at a newspaper here in town, and he was editing that. And I sent him a copy of the book. The truck driving stories in the book were not very trucking industry positive. He said, "How about writing something trucking industry positive?" So I started with a trucker detective, and it ran for 15 years as a serial story in the magazine, 55 short stories I wrote. Also produced 2 audio books and 3 novels published with the character by the Canadian government, Natural Resources Canada. So that was a huge favor he did to me. And one door opens and you just take the opportunity and never know what it's going to lead to. The second one, and this is how I'm going to wrap it up. If you watch the Wolfpack series, my name appears on an opening credit based on a novel by Edo van Belkom. Jeff Davis, I thanked him for that. I said, "You didn't have to do that." He said, no, every episode is going to be there. Because the contract states that the credit has to be on a page by itself. But Rob Sawyer will tell you that in Flash Forward, it was the first page of the closing credits, not in the opening credits for Flash Forward, the TV series on ABC. So Jeff Davis did me a huge favor. Every week, people are tuning in, and it says they're based by a novel by Edo van Belkom. I'm forever grateful because we're trying to sell books too, and that seems to be working. And although there's a disconnect between the young adult version of the novel and the adult version of the series, there's still that, and it's a huge favor. He did not have to do that, but he did it because I'm realizing he's a very good person, one of the few in Hollywood, and he'll say that himself. So
and you said the book was out of print, but I'm assuming it's in print now, right?
It is in print now. We've printed the first book, and you're going to ask me to pitch it at the end, but I'll do it now so you can skip over me at the end. The first book is in print. The other 3, there's 3 other books in the series, Lone Wolf, Cry Wolf, and Wolf Man. They're all available on audiobook and ebook format. And that's where it is right now. So yeah, it's given a big boost to the whole series. We sold the series to audiobook. There's a Czech Republic offered on the first book, and Saudi Arabia is going to do all 4 books in Arabic. So who knows where this is going to end up, but this is what happens when you do a good book. People recognize that, and then something happens and you never know where it's going to end. So that's my story.
I love this 16-year overnight story. I mean,
I was having a discussion with somebody, and he said, oh, are you going to be a one-hit wonder? You know, if there's, and he equated that there was a series, so that was my one big hit. But I've also won the Bram Stoker Award, the Oware Award, Silver Birch Award. I've had all kinds of things in my career, and he was looking at this television series as the one hit. I'm like, oh, what's the writer have to do to be, you know, actually a success? It's hard to convince people that no, I've been doing this for 25, 30 years, and this is something at the end, a little bit of gravy at the end. It's not the one thing that's going to define it.
Of course,
you know,
not.
that's my pet peeve. My pet peeve is that an actor can be in one TV series or one movie and everyone knows them. A singer can have one hit song and everyone knows them, but writers can have a series of books. We should be authors, writers should be the rock stars.
Right. You could be like me and be a no-hit wonder. While we're on you and Nzondi, what is coming up next? And where can people get your book?
Okay, it's a tricky question. So Omnium Gatherum has closed shop. So I'm actually shopping. I did 3 books with them. I did a fitness book, and I did, Lipstick Asylum, and I did Oware Mosaic. So I'm actually shopping that now. And I have a couple of literary agents. I have one literary agent right now that's reading Oware Mosaic twice. And she's thinking of picking, if she picks that up, I think she's going to pick up all the books. So right now, you still can get it. You know, you can go to Amazon and pick those books up right now. But soon they'll be reprinted by a different publisher. Hopefully, very, very soon. So we'll see. But you can also go to my website, aAntonioHall.com, aAntonioHall.com. And
all right. What about you, Rich?
So you can find Cult of Dracula and Rise of Dracula in local comic book shops all over the world. We are on Amazon. I encourage you to go to your local comic book shop instead. You can go to Barnes and Noble. My book's in Target, which was really freaky to find it in Target of all places. So that's Cult of Dracula and Rise of Dracula from SourcePoint Press. My next comic is called Prometheus in Chains. Again, it's a play on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein set in the post-World War II atomic age, where both Victor and Elizabeth were among the Jewish scientists that fled Germany in 1939, came to the United States, worked on the Manhattan Project, and helped to bring down the Reich. And then, of course, some things happen in there, and Elizabeth ultimately dies of cancer, which she got from radiation exposure, and that sends Victor into this spiral of PTSD, depression, obsession. He's determined to bring her back, and that's where we get the Frankenstein angle of the story. But that comes out the first Wednesday in June from Red 5 Comics. You'll be able to find it at every local comic book shop worth its salt in the country. So I highly recommend that you go there. And if you're a local comic book shop owner and you're listening, I just told you how to make money in June.
Oh, I love it. I mean, this P.T. Barnum guy does not quit. Melinda, where can people find your books, and what are you working on next?
Well, they can find me at melindacurtis.com, and I am wide and narrow. So many of my books are on like iBooks, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. I have a lot of Amazon exclusives. And I have a lot of women's fiction coming out that are related to Dandelion Wishes. So I'm writing more in that world. And I also have a lot more in my rom-com series. I have a fun rom-com series that I do. I love those cartoony covers. And then I write cowboy romances for Harlequin. I know you guys are like, hey, cowboy romances. But anyway, I have a really cute matchmaker cowboy romance. So it's called A Cowboy Worth Waiting For. And it was a lot of fun. I try to use a lot of humor in my work.
Got to.
I think that's great. This panel was amazing. I feel like I learned so much. I was just after this, I was going to give some more money to another stranger who said they knew someone at Hulu. I'm canceling that. I'm not going to do it.
Just give me the money. Give me the money. I'll do something with it.
I mean, it was really cool. Rich sent me a message. He said, just Venmo them money and I'll be fine. My name is Scott Ryan. You can find my stuff at Tucker DS Press. I have a book coming out next month called Lost Highway. It's all about David Lynch's movie. And I even got to interview Patricia Arquette, which was like amazing.
Wow.
So that's coming out. And I'm also the co-president of Fayetteville Mafia Press, which is a traditional publisher. But I would say, Melinda, we never tell people how to change their books. We let them do, like, we're a very artist first place. So if you have a book and you
the pitches are going to come in right now. Yeah.
I want the pitches. That's what we're doing. We're a very artist first place. And I just want to thank everyone at the Book Fest for putting this together. Every year, what they do here is incredible and it's not easy. And they all work so very hard. Mm-hmm. So I think what the kids do is they snap. Let's snap for the Book Fest. See, now we all just, we're so young right now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We got
everyone.
the drip, man.
Yeah, I mean, we did it. Okay. Thank you, everyone. This was a wonderful panel.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.